Welcome to the WRC podcast. I'm your host, Katrina Marie, and you're in the right place. Here at the Well-Rounded Counselor podcast, what you can expect is to learn, shift your thinking, and gain personal and professional growth. And if you have not yet done so, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another podcast episode. The conversation starts now. Welcome back to another episode of the WRC podcast. I'm your host, Katrina Marie, and today we have a remarkable guest joining us, Jacqueline Nottingham. Jacqueline's experience lies in the field of higher education, particularly in admissions, career counseling, and program development. With over 30 years of experience, she has made a significant impact on the lives of countless students and families, and I cannot wait for you guys to hear more about that. But before we get into introducing our guest, I want to remind you that you can purchase my book, The Well-Rounded Counselor, Considerations for International College Counselors. There's been an amazing feedback on the book, and so many people are grabbing a copy in its first month of release. So make sure you grab a copy today. I will leave the link below in my show notes. Now, let's introduce my guest, Jacqueline. Throughout her career, she has worked with diverse populations, including international students pursuing undergraduate and graduate education abroad. She has had a deep understanding of the intricacies of the admissions process and the challenges faced by students seeking educational opportunities in the USA, UK, Canada, Australia, the Netherlands, and other countries. What sets Jacqueline apart is her comprehensive knowledge of both sides of the admissions equation. Having worked at selective large universities and small liberal arts colleges, she has gained invaluable insights into the admissions procedures and requirements. This expertise allows her to create personalized plans and guide her students effectively. Jacqueline's specialization extends to highly selective STEM universities. Her work also involves closely assisting students who aspire to join medical programs in the USA and abroad. Beyond her professional accomplishments, Jacqueline's personal travels have taken her to an impressive 57 countries, including the MENA region. These global experiences have enriched her understanding of diverse cultures and further enhanced her ability to connect with people from different backgrounds. In today's episode, we will delve into Jacqueline's wealth of knowledge and expertise in higher education, admissions, and career counseling. We will explore the challenges faced by international students and the intricacies of the admissions process and the importance of personalized guidance. So let's jump right in and welcome Jacqueline Nottingham to the show. Welcome, Jacqueline.
Hi, Katrina. How are you? I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us today. Jacqueline, I'm really excited to get into more about your story. Can you tell us about your journey in the field of higher education and admissions and a little bit about your background and what got you seeking these educational opportunities abroad?
Well, my start began as a regular college counselor recruiter for a large research university. My journey really first started in undergraduate admissions, where I served as a recruiter for Virginia Tech. And I really elevated myself and was promoted to different positions within the office during my 14 years in the Office of Undergraduate Admissions. But from there, I expanded also into career counseling and to working with students going to graduate school programs. I moved then into an area with financial aid and working at a small liberal arts college, Concord University in West Virginia. But during all of those times, I was working with a variety of different kinds of students, underrepresented students, students from special populations, as well as international students. And I had the opportunity then, while I was at Concord, to actually do recruiting overseas. And I was exploring lots of different areas. I moved from Concord back to Virginia Tech and worked as an international recruiter. And that's where I will say the pieces kind of fell into place for me. And I decided that whatever my journey was going to be from that point forward, that it was going to be in the international arena, because I felt at home. You know, when something happens and it just clicks for you, whether you taste something and you really love it, or you see something and it just moves you, that's how I felt. Literally, that's how I felt in the arena for international education. So I said, I'm going to do it. And I was exploring a variety of different jobs and opportunities. I really liked what I saw in the Middle East and the diversity of people that I met, and was fortunate enough to be able to take on a college counselor position at a post-secondary school in Qatar.
Wow. I can totally relate when you say you just kind of fell in love with the international arena and it just kind of took your heart. And then there was just no going back from there. And I think a lot of people who listen to this podcast are in the international arena or thinking about it. So um, I know that feeling firsthand. So I'm glad that you brought that up. But with your extensive knowledge in both large universities and small liberal arts colleges, what are some key insights you've gained about the admission process that you find particularly valuable when working with students, especially in the international world?
I think what's important to note in working with large universities as well as small ones is that the admissions offices really do pay personal attention to the students who are applying, and they take it as seriously as the students who are submitting their applications because they want to find that person who fits at their place. We always talk to students about finding your tribe and finding the place that works for you, and not necessarily because it's a name brand or because it's ranked in a certain way. Because if you're not happy, then maybe you could still be successful, but it's still not necessarily the right place. And I think that that's the one of the important things for students to understand, but also to understand that just because there is something with a brand name or with a number uh, doesn't mean that's your place. Or because somebody else liked it, you're going to like it too. Because we're all individuals. We all have different strengths. We all have different priorities in our life. We all have different goals. And that's very, very important. But when you're looking at different types of schools and you're thinking about the admissions process in general, you also have to look at the students themselves and see where they are in their space, in their journey, because some people are ready to jump right in and some people need to wade into the water a little bit slower than others. And as you meet with students and as you talk with them about what they want for their future, some know or think they know, and
Yes.
some have no idea at all. And I tell many people every day, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up because there's so many amazing things out there that you can do. There are lots of things that are constantly being created and invented, and you don't even know if you're going to be one of those people because you might get an idea.
Hmm.
So it's important to not define yourself right away, but to be open and to explore. And I think that that's, very, very important.
I think you said something very key is that the universities take it equally as serious as the student does when they're applying, that the university almost takes on this sense of responsibility of doing the right thing for the student. Like, okay, the student may have excellent qualifications, but they may not fit the community, the campus community that the university is trying to build. And that could be a disservice if this particular student comes to that university. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I feel like that could actually be a very positive. It's almost like they are really combing through the applications to make sure.
Right, exactly true.
So you mentioned, well, when I read your bio, you have some extra expertise in the STEM fields and helping students gain admission to really highly selective universities that specialize in STEM. So what are some of the common challenges that students face when applying to these programs, and how do you specifically guide them through the process?
Over the years, the idea of working in science, technology, education, and mathematics has really accelerated. And so the popularity of majors in those fields, along with business, has made it highly competitive. And especially at selective universities, things like computer science, engineering, and we've seen this more because of COVID and test optional admissions, is that the admissions rates have become so low. The admit rates are so, and so it becomes ultra competitive for students, and people don't always understand what that means, or they think, well, I'm going to be the one. I could be in the 5%, but you need to use all kinds of metrics when you're working with students and families to help them understand that sometimes it's just the luck of the draw, and it's not personal.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we just talked about how personal universities are, sometimes based on their priorities, it's a numbers, factor. You might have 5,000 applications out of 20,000 applications for the university that are all towards engineering or computer science, and they only have room for 100. Yeah. So it's impossible. And many students are coming to the table with very strong academic backgrounds. So I think also one of the challenges for students is to try to know themselves and know their story, but also to gain experiences so that they can tell their story in an authoritative and commanding way. Many students have opportunities to take advantage of volunteering or getting hands-on direct experience, or some will take on other experiences that help build skills related to their majors. And sometimes you do things and you find you don't like it. And I'm a really big proponent of what I call elimination. If you don't like it, great, get it off of your plate. That enables you to focus on the next step of your journey. And even when I talk with folks about my own journey, I'm not saying that I've eliminated any paths, but all the experiences I have given me an option to turn left or turn right. And that's what I want students to do, is to take advantage of those opportunities that they have and use them and build their skill sets and to learn more about themselves. When you're 18 years old, you may not have the comfort level of knowing enough about yourself. Advance forward, here I am, much older than 18, but I'm still learning every day because I'm taking advantage of different experiences that I would never have had in my life. And that has also given me the chance to choose what my next steps will be and how I want to go. So I think that's important for students as they're looking at highly selective universities and how they can approach and present themselves as a part of the application profile.
Absolutely. We talk about this concept of being a well-rounded student, and we talk about, all the things you need to be doing to build your profile starting as early as ninth grade, because if you're looking at these highly competitive institutions, if you're starting at the end of grade 11 or even like the summer before grade 12, you're late. You are late. And it's like you said, it's compounded. It's built on each other, and it's not always related to the major, but it's the skills and how it transfers into the interest you may or may not have. So absolutely. Jacqueline, you have so much experience with 30 years of working in higher education, being a college counselor. You have experience working with students from a myriad of backgrounds and their interest in going to medical school. So let's talk about medical school, because you've helped some kids get into some highly complex and competitive programs, and pursuing a medical degree or looking at the US or anywhere for that matter, it can be quite competitive. And how do you support them in that application journey? As we talked about the profile and selecting a university that's a good fit, what would you say about that?
I think the first thing that's most important for students to realize as they make a consideration for wanting to go to medical school is their why. Why is it that they want to go to medical school? And that's probably the very first question that I ask of every single student who comes to me and says, I want to be a doctor. And I say, why? Because if you don't have that awareness, and some students will say, well, because I want to help people. And I always counter with, I'm helping people every day, but I'm not a doctor. So you need to know your why. You have to have good reasons behind it. You need to know maybe what the spark was that turned that light on for you to give you the incentive to pursue a medical career. It shouldn't be that, well, my parents want me to be a doctor, or, I thought this looked like it would be fun. And then from those kinds of conversations, we also look at other things like, well, what experiences have you had? Again, it goes back to what have you done to check with yourself to see if this is really the place that you want to be, because medicine doesn't necessarily have to mean doctor. there are so many pathways within the medical field and health careers that students could take advantage of. You could run a hospital, you could be in management, and still get a fulfillment from helping people in the medical industry. So as a part of the journey, I try to help them to identify ways they can get experiences. I challenge them to do different types of things, to look at the skills that are involved with the career that they are interested in being what kind of a doctor do you want to be, and what does that mean, and have you talked to a doctor to find out what is it like, what's a day in the life like of a doctor or any person in any career. Because again, you may find I'm not good at standing on my feet all day. I like my sleep. I don't like to give bad news. Gosh, I get a hangnail and it bleeds, and I'm crazy. So I think that students need to have those types of experiences. But beyond that, you've got the academic side of getting into medical school. And so you have to understand what are the realities. Because first off, medical school doctors are some of the top academic people that we deal with in our lives. And have you put in the efforts for that in your path towards school? Secondly, depending on where it is you want to study, what are the chances, especially for an international student, of getting into a program in a country that is not their native country, not where they're not citizens? So if you're studying in the United States and you want to go to medical school, how many spots do they actually have for international students? And how can the qualification, should you get through all those pathways, how will those qualifications work for you as far as your goals for where you want to practice medicine? Because are you studying to be a doctor and you get your license in the United States, but you want to go back to your home country? Do you need to know, if I was studying in another country, not the United States, where the national language was not English, do I need to know the language of that country before or while I'm studying to be a doctor? But the ultimate thing too with students and medical programs, and I don't even just want to say students, I want to say families, I want to say people, is that there are many parts of the puzzle involved in medical school. And many people think, well, it's the name of the university that I go to undergrad, or if the undergrad university also has a medical school, then I'm going to have a better chance of getting in, or I've had these great experiences and that's going to take me there. But finally, in true reality, the chances of getting a job and becoming a doctor are a lot based on where you get your residency and where those opportunities are. Because you can do all the academic stuff. You and I, when we went to school, we did lots of things and we got a degree. That does not mean that's where we're going to get a job. I mean, and clearly, some of my background, yes, I have degrees that probably did lead me to where I am, but I didn't study being a college counselor to get to where I am. And the same thing about being a doctor. But so residency plays an important part. And so you could go to the best schools, you could have the connections, you could get into medical school, but if you can't find a residency that's going to help you build your skills to get a real job after that, then it doesn't matter. So you need to look at the whole picture, and I really try to do that, not only in the medical field, but in all fields as I'm working with students.
I think that's so insightful. I mean, there's so many colleagues that are...
Sorry.
There are so many colleagues who are new to college counseling that listen to this podcast. So I feel like that was a really comprehensive answer. And I really loved everything you shared, because it's not just the student that we're counseling at the end of the day, it's the family as well. And a lot of times they just think it's the status quo career. There's so much prestige. It's secure in terms of financial security. But the reality of the job, the day-to-day, the studying and putting in the effort and the long hours is pretty grueling. If you would ask me, I wouldn't want to sign up to be a doctor, but nonetheless, we need to know that information despite the fact. So you gave a really beautiful, comprehensive answer. So let's talk about a little bit as your experience being an independent educational consultant and having helped a lot of students gain admission into name brand universities. Let's call it name brand universities with the air quotes, right? Um, the people that listen to this podcast, they're new to the field and they're also veterans. What would you what would be like your pieces of advice, your wisdom, your pearls of wisdom that you would give, or tips that prove to be effective in helping students stand out in their application?
I think that one of the most important things for students to understand as they are putting all of the pieces of their application together is to also match or try to connect with the pieces of the puzzle with the universities that they're applying to, because not every university is looking for the same thing. We're not cookie cutter. They're not cookie cutter. And we know some of this already because of the selectivity of some universities, their offerings as far as programs and majors on their campus, but also the activities that you can get involved in on their campus and experiences that you can gain while you're there. So you have to do your research about the universities themselves. And when you as a student, as a person, are looking for a college or university to attend, you have to find your place. You have to find what resonates with you. You have to find your comfort level. I grew up in a very small rural community on the eastern shore of Virginia. My hometown has a population of 300 people.
Wow.
And maybe it's still only 300 people. I don't. It's very tiny. I chose a university that was large because I didn't have those experiences where I grew up. I had lots of experiences, and I took advantage of everything I could while I was here. I went to a large university, but it was still in a small college town. So that gave me a different kind of arena that I could focus in versus going to one that was in a very large urban place, because I was a country girl. Mm-hmm. And I still tell people I'm a country girl. So even though I live in Doha, Qatar, and it is a city, it's a very small country with only 3 million people versus a place like, I don't know, New York City or Moscow, Russia, or something like that, China. I had lots of opportunities as I was looking around and selecting my next position. And I was thinking about, who am I? What do I like in my life? What's going to make it better for me? And those were the factors that I chose. And I love it where I am, and that worked out for me. And students need to do the same thing. So that might mean visiting college campuses, talking with students, talking with alumni, eating on campus. What's the weather like? What kind of clubs and activities? Are you more of a book learner, or are you more of a hands-on practical learner? And do they have then things for me to get involved in? Do I like groups, and do I like clubs, and do I like to socialize with people, or am I more of a singular person, with a few friends? You've got to think about those things and start gaining that flavor as you're exploring, so that you know more about yourself, and being able to then talk to universities and to talk with admissions officers or even people within academic departments to see why this is a good place for you. Because in some cases, you do have to tell the university why their university is your place. And it shouldn't be because, they're the number one brand and they're wonderful and they have great alumni. They know that. They know those. You don't have to tell them that. They know how wonderful they are. They want to know why you would be a good fit and how you can make a contribution and make them a more wonderful place for the next generation that comes in.
Oh my gosh, everything you just said, I say to my kids, and I'm like over here nodding my head, like, I said that, I say that, I say that. Boom, 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 check, check, check. I mean, you are preaching what we all probably feel, especially as seasoned professionals. Like, I think everything you said, I really resonated with. And I thank you so much for reiterating that, because you have that experience coming from the admission side and the college counseling side. So for you to say that, it just kind of like validated me as a college counselor. And although like I know what I'm doing, it just felt like really good to say like, okay, I'm doing all those things she says I'm doing.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things that I really think is important as a college counselor, we're often in positions where we're by ourselves. Whether it's me serving as an independent counselor or me as a college counselor in my role in the school. And we need to collaborate with our colleagues. We need to brainstorm with them. We need to bounce ideas off of others. And I think that also helps to validate, I love your word, what we're doing every day, and that the information we have and that we're sharing with students is right. Because in those situations, we're like the parent, and our students are like our kids. And maybe they don't want to hear us, right? Or they don't want to hear what we're saying, because what do we really know? But we know our stuff. And we have resources available to us, like our colleagues, like the internet. Thank goodness for the internet, right? The internet was a baby, when I was starting my professional career. So being able to keep in touch with those colleagues and working through professional organizations and volunteering and speaking and gaining knowledge from others, participating in counselor fly-ins and visiting universities ourselves. So we can ask the questions that either students don't have the opportunity to, or they're too embarrassed to, or they're afraid to. And our colleagues on the other side, admissions officers, like to talk to us because they can give us some of the inside information that we can not only extrapolate from, but that we can translate to our students. Because students sometimes only want to hear what they want to hear, and not what the real picture is, because they take it so personally. They want to, there was one thing wrong. I had a spelling mistake and that wiped me out of the admissions process. No, of course not. But you have to be able to understand. So utilizing your resources is very, very important as well.
Absolutely. So everything you just mentioned, Jacqueline, was so important. We as counselors need a sense of community, and that's kind of why I created this platform called the Well-Rounded Counselor. I kind of want to switch gears because I like to ask my guests this question, and this was not a question that I had sent you, so I always like to just kind of throw you in the hot seat. Let's call it that. But what would you define someone as when you think of the term a well-rounded counselor?
It's interesting you talk about well-rounded, because I think we talk to students sometimes about being well-rounded in the application process, and I'll come back to that. But to answer your question, I think a well-rounded counselor is someone who looks at it from both sides of the desk. And maybe I want to add a third desk in there, including the student's desk. So you're looking at it from the admissions officers and university side, from whichever country you're talking about. You're looking at it from your own work and level of responsibilities, and you're looking at it from the stakeholders, the students and the family side. And you have to know and understand the process that are involved in all of those parts. But it doesn't mean you have to be an expert and know everything exactly. You need to be able to find the resources that can help you with the answers. Yesterday, I helped someone fix a problem on their computer. I didn't know anything about that problem, but I Googled it. It gave me a result, and it worked. And I tell students all the time, Google is your friend. Whatever search engine is, use your resources because they're available. And I think that it's difficult not only for students, because we see this more every day, and sometimes we do it ourselves. We get afraid or scared to ask about things because then it might look like, we don't know what we're talking about. We can't possibly know everything. And even in today's technology, using ChatGPT or AI, we don't know if I don't believe they're 100% correct. I think they can be a resource for us to get started and to get information. And so utilizing our resources, I think, is the best way to be a well-rounded counselor, and to take advantage of any opportunity we can to learn something new, to ask questions, and don't be afraid to ask questions, because somebody else might be thinking the same thing, but they just can't get their hand up. And being able to share that information with other people. I've always been a person who, when somebody called and they said, can you help me with this? I will say, yes, and here's the information. Or, yes, I don't know. I want to help you, but I don't know it exactly. I'm going to get back to you. Then I go and find the information. So I've made a connection with someone else. And then I've taken it back and helped someone. And that has not only built my toolkit because I didn't pass it off to somebody else, it's helped elevate me, but it's also allowed me to make some connections with other people, and they may come to me as a resource, or they may refer somebody to me. And that's just a part of my own being, as far as the kind of person I want to be known for. I want to be known as a resource. I want to be known as somebody who's helpful. I want to be known as somebody who's kind, or compassionate, or caring. And I think being a well-rounded counselor means that you take in all of the information you can, and help others with it.
I love that answer. Thank you for sharing that. I know that you've been living in Qatar, and building community and a network there is like one of your like a little passion projects you mentioned before our interview. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, it wasn't just me who got it started, but I was a part of kind of a counselor gathering from some universities that participated and came into Qatar. And during that time, and I think it was in my first year, it might have been my second year in Qatar, another counselor said, "Hey, let's create a WhatsApp group. Let's try to do some things where we can collaborate." And from there, that has just taken off. There was already an email distribution group that somebody had created before, but we just took it to the next level. And now that group in and of itself has over 200 members, and it's counselors in Qatar as well as some other university representatives. And then we created from that, as we started all partnering together on hosting virtual fairs and doing some other things, a separate WhatsApp group for university counselors outside of Qatar to connect with counselors so that they can share their information. And now I'm in the process of collaborating with other counselors in the MENA region so that we have one as well, because we're finding that more and more counselors are coming to the field, but they're coming with different experiences, different knowledge bases, and different skills. And so we really are trying to build each other up and support one another, because, as I mentioned before, we are often alone in our jobs, a singular counselor in an office situation. And this has been so helpful to each other. And I recently participated in a counselor fly-in in London through the Times Higher Ed and BMI, where they brought in over 100 counselors to learn and to get certification. But we learned so much from each other. It builds our network. We all have different experiences. We all have different kinds of students from different parts of the world, but we all go through a lot of the same things. Again, some of the things I say resonated with you will resonate with other counselors. What other people say, I go, gosh, I have felt like that too, and that really helped me. And sometimes there are things that happen every day. For example, I'm not really great on taking care of myself. I'm often taking care of other people, but I learned some techniques to help in my own wellness through participation with some other counselors. And that's great, because otherwise I wouldn't think about it. I'd just be doing my job. I wouldn't stop to smell the roses, if you will.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably been one of the most fulfilling things, beyond my work and in the region, and having been an international recruiter and visiting lots of places. That has just been so fulfilling for me.
I know that there are so many individuals who come from different backgrounds who take this leap of faith. I was one of them. I took that leap of faith and I decided to get on a plane and go halfway around the world to Dubai. And I knew nobody. I didn't have a WhatsApp group. I didn't have the layout of the land. I knew nothing. So imagine these people who are just kind of floating out there right now, kind of lost and maybe dazed and confused, or just trying to just stay afloat. They don't have that support network. Would I be able to share that information in my show notes so people can find it that are in Qatar specifically or in the region specifically? Would that be something I could share?
Sure. Oh, yeah, definitely. And like I said, we're still building in the MENA region, but we're looking for counselors. We're looking for people who want to be involved, who want to learn more. And there are other networks out there like IC3 who have a mission of having a counselor in every school. And so I'm an advocate for IC3, trying to just put it out there. And even if they're not in one of those regions, but they want to connect with me, that's fine. I'm happy to do that because somebody gave me a lift, and I want to help somebody else too. And you never know, just one simple thing where it can lead to someone else in their life, in their daily activities, things not related to their work, whatever it may be. And I think that's just so important.
Absolutely. Everything you're saying, like, I feel like I'm like, oh my gosh, I resonate with what you're saying. Or, I've learned even some new tidbits from you today, and they're like going to be in my new counselor tool belt for next academic year because today was the last day of school. But, I want to know a little bit more. And this is my final question. I just want to learn a little bit more because you have so much experience traveling around the world. And I know that you are kind of here in the MENA region, but you've also been to Asia and other countries around the world, and you've seen and experienced a lot of different cultures and backgrounds. How has that influenced your approach to counseling international students?
I think one of the I don't want to say it's necessarily something that's revealing, but you have to experience other things in order to be able to share that with students, because some students don't get to travel, they don't get a chance to visit universities, they don't get to talk with people and so forth. And what I have found the most in I'm up to 57 countries now, so not nearly as many as some, but as others, is that a lot of people want the same things in their life for their kids. They want them to have better opportunities. They want them to get a good education. They want them to be happy. They want healthy, and so forth. But you'll find most people are super hospitable, and they're caring. I never have been afraid to go anywhere and to engage with people. There's not a color barrier, there's not a religious barrier, there's male versus female, because you see those things when you're in your silo and you're looking out across the world. You see things going on all around the world, and we gain a lot of information, whether it's fake or real, on social media, in the news, on the internet. And it's hard to understand how I fit into those places, especially as I'm preparing for my academic journey, going to university somewhere else, either in my country or somewhere else, even. And I tell students all the time, you have to think about you. Uh, I'm going to tell you what I know. I'm going to tell you based on my experiences, based on my diversity being in the country, based on my privilege being in the country, where I grew up, my own personal life experiences. I was married before, I'm not now. I have mixed kids, so I have different thought processes that I think about. I have had lots of experiences, and I reach out to people and I ask questions, and students have to understand they should do that too and think about it for themselves, not just accept what they see on television, or that it's dangerous. A lot of people come to me, oh, they say America, it's so dangerous, and I'm some flavor of brown, and how will that impact me? And I say that's true everywhere. You have to investigate it for yourself, but you also have to be smart. And if you do your research and you talk with others who have been in, who are like you, who are not like you, where you want to go, what their experiences have been, then you have to make some of those decisions for yourself, not based on because somebody told you, don't go there, you're not going to like it. They're not you. They're not doing your work. They're not preparing you for your future. They're not paying your bills. You have to make those decisions for yourself. And I think that is probably one of the biggest things that I try to get across with students, because they haven't had those opportunities that I have been fortunate enough to have. And so again, it's sharing your resources, and helping people grow. Every day, in all my years, I say I have grown so much in the last 6 years of my work in Qatar and in the Middle East than I had in the previous years before that, because of the interactions that I have had with people, how I've sought out different connections with people, and how I've learned so much more about different cultures because of it.
Everything you just said is like, do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. I had like so many things going through my head, and I feel like I could just keep talking to you for like 5 more hours, but I don't want to do that to you, Jacqueline. But nonetheless, what you said about bringing our own worldview and not only sharing that, but also listening to them and what's important to them, and then somehow merging the two and having a engaging dialogue is super amazing. And just living here in the region, I feel like I resonate with you, because being in Dubai the past 10 years, no textbook in grad school can prepare you for the level of experiences that I have received, and it sounds like you have received as well, just by living and working in a country like Qatar or the UAE or the MENA region, or the collaboration that we get as an international council. Like, no graduate program that I've heard of can prepare you to this level. And it's just so beautiful to hear everything you've shared with us tonight. And it just really, again, I don't mean to keep going back to my book, but it's almost like you co-authored my book, The Well-Rounded Counselor. I'm not even exaggerating. So if you're liking what Jacqueline had talked about, I talk a lot about the similar sentiments about moving abroad and your career catapulting and bringing your own worldview and, understanding the students, but also really understanding yourself before you help the student. Really, that's what this is about. So Jacqueline, honestly, thank you so much for such a beautiful, engaging dialogue tonight. If people want to get in touch with you, how can they?
The best way, I think, for folks to reach out to me is on LinkedIn. So you can find me, Jacqueline L. Nottingham, on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to connect.
Amazing. I will leave the link to her LinkedIn in my show notes. So if you'd like to connect with Jacqueline, I mean, we all love to connect on LinkedIn. That's where a lot of collaboration happens. So if you're not there in LinkedIn, you might want to join the party, people. So thank you, Jacqueline, so much for your time this evening. It's been such a pleasure. And thank you.
It's wonderful, Katrina. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to this week's episode of the WRC podcast. And as always, make sure that you guys tune in each week. You subscribe. If you like this episode, if you feel like it resonated with you, or you want to learn more, reach out to me, reach out to Jacqueline, reach out to people who have been in the field for a long time. We're here to help. We're here to support. And also make sure that you leave that 5-star review for me, because that really helps other people find the podcast. And just make sure you have a beautiful week, and we'll be in touch. Take care, everybody, and we'll catch you all on the next episode. Did you love the episode? I hope you're feeling inspired and no longer feeling alone out there, and you're ready to evolve and become a better person. Make sure that you share this podcast or take a screenshot and post it on your social media. That's how you help spread this podcast organically, and people can find it much easier when you share, or share it with a loved one. I'm your host, Katrina Marie, and make it your mission to be a blessing in someone else's life today.